Hello and welcome to the television journalism series of lectures. In today's episode, we are going to talk about something that is the most important to all journalists. The most important source for getting information, the most important means rather of getting information from anywhere across the world, and that is interviewing. We are going to talk about a few interviewing skills today. Now, why interviewing? Interviewing is important because all the journalists, put together across all the parts of the world and all the newspapers, all the channels, everyone, all the news, reporters put together are not enough to cover all the things that are happening in the world all the time. And news can happen anytime, anywhere. So a journalist cannot be available to the movement all the time, and therefore he relies on getting information from people who are witnesses to certain events. He relies on information that he gets by meeting the experts to cross-check. And therefore, my dear friends, interviewing skills are paramount to every journalist. And today we are going to talk about interviewing skills. Okay. Now, the first question we need to answer, of course, there are three questions in today's episode that we'll try and answer. One, of course, is the purpose of interview. Why should anybody interview? Second is the interviewing steps. Okay. And third are the interviewing techniques. Okay. So, what are the functions of interviews? What purpose do they really serve? Okay. First is they help you gather evidence. Okay. They help you gather evidence because you are going and meeting the witnesses and you're getting information from others, and therefore you need to have somebody who has witnessed the event to tell you. Okay. So second is to gather opinions. Let's say a budget has been announced. You need to go and get the sound bites or interviews or opinions of people in the opposition or people who have not been part of, or people who are experts. Okay, so you need to get their opinions on how the budget is and things like that. So that is another purpose of interviewing. You also need to get reactions of people. Okay, opposition parties, leaders. You need to get economists, financial wizards, stock markets, and who have you. Okay, so if there is an event, a major event like the budget, or if there is any elections that take place, you go and try and find out. The reporter tries and find out. He meets people, he meets other MLAs, MPs who have lost the election, won the election. They want to really get, or they go and meet the party supporters and say, okay, what is your reaction to the victory or defeat? Okay, so you get opinions. Okay, second, you get reactions. Then you also need interviews to introduce a personality, someone who is not known to the people. You go and meet the people, and this person is very important and you know that person, but the people do not know that person. And that is the reason why you're going and saying that you need to listen to this person. Okay, and I will interview you on behalf of you, the audience. Okay, so you go and meet somebody. Okay, and you need to introduce that personality because people do not know that personality, and therefore you interview him, and through the interview, by asking certain questions, you are trying to introduce that person to you, and you get to realize why that person is important. Then you also use interviews, the functions of interviews. You also moderate a discussion. If it is a formal interview, let's say in a studio, okay, you need to moderate a discussion also. And because usually you must have seen that people from different parties are always at loggerheads, and you need to also moderate the discussion as well as ask the right questions of the right persons and get their opinions and reactions. Okay, then you also use interviews also serve to another purpose, and that purpose could be to ask a question during the press conference. So that is also a kind of an interview where you stand up and ask a question. So your ability to ask question is very, very important. So you stand up and you ask a question during a conference. Okay. Again, even here, you are always, remember one thing. The journalist is functioning is the eyes and ears of the people who cannot witness the events themselves, who cannot understand the issues at great depth themselves. And therefore, the journalist is only a representative of the people and representative of the questions that the people should be, the information that people should be getting from the source. Okay, so journalists should not consider themselves above the people. People are the reason why you are there, and in public interest you are trying to meet people, meet personalities. So you need to ask a question. Whenever you ask a question, you are asking a question at a conference, at an interview, or at any other forum. You are always basically asking a question on behalf of the people. And you should always, especially when you are doing an interview in the studio, you should always remember that if you are allowing somebody to talk at length, okay, without any interruptions, you need to constantly keep in mind that the audience is getting ticked off. The audience is getting angry. At what point will my audience get ticked off should be something that you should always know. Okay, so then you need to interrupt. So even when you are interrupting during an interview, you are interrupting on behalf of the audience. Okay, please remember that. Okay, so it's not as if somebody you are interviewing, he's a great friend of you, so you allow that person to say anything that he wants and at length that he wants. Okay, that is not an interview, that is a noddy. Okay, so anything the person says, you keep saying yes, 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 nodding. That is not an interview at all. And you should please remember, the function of the interview therefore is first and foremost is to let the audience see and hear the source. Okay, now there are other functions also of the interview. One is to convey information to the reader. Remember, information is the base on which journalism really stands. If you are not providing information to the people, that is you are not really doing your duty. So you have to provide information, and for information you are meeting people. Okay, then you also give an opportunity to people to explain their side of the story. Supposing you say that something has happened, somebody has said something has made an allegation, let's say a very serious allegation. So it's important for you to interview the other side, go and meet that person, seek an appointment and say, these are the allegations that are being made. I am here to cross-check. I am giving you an opportunity to rebut, okay, or react to, or present your side of the story, because your side of the story is also very important to my audience. Okay, now so you are basically giving an opportunity to the other side to give their account of the story. And interviews also become a very important ingredient for any analysis, useful analysis that the journalists have to carry out. Now, the first question that comes up is, okay, you want to interview? Yes. You want to fix up an appointment? Yes. You want to get the information on behalf of your people? Yes. You want to ask questions on behalf of the audience? That is also fine. But the question is, why should anyone give you or agree to give you an interview? Okay, that is a very important question. You should also understand before you actually go out and interview a person, that why is a person agreeing to give you an interview? Okay, there is, the source also wants to use you to get his information across, and therefore he may have conceded to give you an interview. Okay, so first and foremost, you need to know as a journalist, why is that person willing to give you an interview, or why is he agreeing to give you an interview? First and foremost, there is a possibility for any person, let's say official spokesperson of a political party or a corporate organization or any organization. Okay, it is free advertising for them. It is promotional of the self. Okay, even if you are going and meeting an environmentalist, he also wants a platform. Okay, he wants a platform to air his views, and that platform is being watched by millions of people, and therefore they will say, I have a product, I have an idea, I have an opinion, I have a reaction, and I want that opinion to be passed on to the people. And that is the reason why he or she might agree to give you an interview. That is one purpose, that is one reason why they are agreeing to give you an interview. You should know why they are giving you an interview. Okay. Now, they are also spokespersons of parties, as I said, or of an industry or a company or whatever. They need to put their point across. They want to get their news in the newspapers. They want their news to get into the television channels. So they are spokespersons basically. You need to know that this person is a spokesperson. He is not going to give you news. He is only going to give the nicer side of the story. He is not going to give you, facts that are going to be unpalatable or critical of the organization. Please understand that. So you are meeting a spokesperson. He is going to give you only the opinion on behalf of his company. Okay. So you need to know that. So spokespersons of political parties, organizations, PRs, agencies, all of these people need media, some vehicle to get on to and get to the desired or target audiences. That is the reason why they have agreed to give you an interview. Then there is also, when you go to a person, if a person says, why should I really grant you interview? You people are always misinterpreting the company's voice or the political party's voice, and there's so much of misquoting, misinterpretation that happens all the time. Why should I give you an interview? So you should be able to convince that person why he or she needs to get this information, and that it is in his interest or her interest to give the interview, not in your interest. Okay, this is very important, because nobody helps, okay, unless there is some reason for them, some benefit for them to give you an interview. Why should anyone do you a favor? Okay, so what you need to do is, you should tell them, look, the opposition party has already given their opinion, and we are carrying that opinion, and we are being very fair to you. I am approaching you and I am asking you, see, the allegations are very serious. You better use this opportunity that I am giving you to give your side of the story. So you are giving me an interview not as a favor, but to save your own skin. If I carry that opinion and I don't carry your opinion, one is that I would be professionally doing a wrong. Second, if you do not use that opportunity that I am giving you to put your point across, it will not be in the interest of your party or your organization. So when you give them a reason that it is in their interest, they will be more willing to give you the interview. Understand that. Okay. Then, so it allows them to what? To do what? Balance adverse reports. Even for the publication, even for the channel. If you have been, there is something, we have to be objective in journalism. We need to provide various shades of public opinion, various shades of opinion on any issue or any event. We cannot give only one side of the story. Of course, you might say that many of the channels are almost always now giving one side of the story. Okay, they are deliberately blanking out the other side of the story also. They are not letting you get more opinion, which means they are actually impoverishing democracy by denying you access to other opinions, other shades of public opinion. Democracy is about giving to people information and giving them various shades of public opinion, so that the public can make a very conscious and an informed choice. Okay, so you should not carry only one side of the story, and you should be carrying other side of the story. That is the reason why you should also consent to always interview people whose opinion may not match yours, but it is important that people listen to their opinions. People have a right to know, remember, and you cannot deny people the right to know. Okay, and therefore, to balance out any adverse reports, it is always important for you to interview somebody on the other side, and also get the other side, persuade them to give you an interview, okay, to get their point of view across. Now, many a time, ordinary people want to talk to someone, okay. There are no amenities in some of our slums. The poor people have no access to sanitation. Sometimes, nobody gives a damn what is really happening. So there are people in authority who are supposed to do work for the poor in, much more than for the rich, but at least, uniformly across all the citizens of this country. But let's say they are not performing that role. It's usually what happens is, because we have an unequal society, we have the richer people, the politically, people who are in authority, tend to get very easy mileage in the media. Their voices are always heard. But the poor and the dispossessed, they are the people who require media to sound their opinion to the governments and to authorities. And therefore it becomes your duty to go and put your microphone, switch on your camera and listen to people, so they also have something to say. Okay, now if there are so many good reasons for anyone to give you an interview, why do the people disagree? Why does a person disagree and say, I don't want to give you an interview? Why does that person say so? The first, and you need to know this, the first and very important reason for anyone to disagree to do an interview with you is that they have a perception that if something comes in the press, they might be grilled. Okay, especially people in authority, they are very scared. What if we say something that our bosses may not like? And therefore many a time they say, I would like to tell you something, but I'll tell you off the record. Okay, so they have a perception that, the other thing is that if it is a politician or a leader, an MLA or an MP, they have perceptions that you may grill them, you may give them a tough time with your questions. And on television, especially if it is live, it might amount to their humiliation. Okay, so that is the fear of the journalist, fear of the camera, and therefore they say, I don't want to give you an interview. Okay, say keep away. There are also, because we edit the interview many a time, especially when you're doing sound bites, and journalists also have a very bad habit, and please do not have that habit. They have a very bad habit of cutting. They will not show the context in which things are being said. Sometimes they will not say the entire explanation, and there are many instances where both opposition leaders as well as the ruling party leaders, their views have been cut and pasted out of context. Okay, and there are many occasions that this has happened, and therefore the leader says, once bitten, twice shy. Okay, I am going to be misinterpreted, and my views are going to be misrepresented. They might take whatever I say, and they might take one particular point that I might have said in the 100 things and play it out of context. Now that is a possibility, and journalists have been notorious for doing that. Okay, and therefore people who need to be interviewed, they say, I don't want to be interviewed, sorry. You meet my boss, they'll say, or you go and meet the ministry, they'll say. They'll refuse to give you an interview. Okay, there will also be an official censure. Okay, their bosses might pull them up and say, why did you tell them? Why did you meet the press? So they'll say, might as well stay away. Why do we need this problem? Journalists also have a tendency to change the meaning when they edit. Supposing it's a long interview, and for some reason they have asked a question, you have asked a question, and they have said yes. Another question, the person has said no. You can take that portion of the no and put it here, and take this portion of the yes and put it there. The meanings will change. Okay, so the other thing is, of course, they feel that they are not very sure about how they will come across. Are they camera friendly? Many intelligent people, they are not camera friendly. Okay, but there are many politicians, okay, who are very smart, who understand the medium very well. They know the journalist is looking for 30 seconds of maximum 30 seconds he is looking for a sound bite. He is trying to fool me, and he's saying, I'm going to give you all opportunity and all that. And in the end, they will take that one 15 seconds or 20 seconds or 30 seconds maximum from this entire 10-minute or 15-minute interview and use it. Okay? So, and they're not very sure also about how they will come across on the screen, how they will be accepted as, people who are making. Can they really make impact? What their words, can they really make impact? Not many people are sure. They might be very, very intelligent, but when you switch on the camera, they might not come across too well. And therefore they say, I don't want to come on an interview at all. Okay? So they'll either be nervous about what the bosses will say. They are afraid of official censure. They are afraid of themselves being misrepresented. They might also be upset about a happening. Maybe in the past something has happened with your newspaper or publication or television channel, and therefore they'll say journalists should be kept away. Okay, so there are many reasons why somebody can disagree with the giving you an interview. Okay, let's say you're called up. You've been very nice. You've been able to convince them that it is in their interest that they are giving you an interview, and they are also convinced, let's say, okay, let me meet this person. So you have generated enough confidence in the source that you do not pose any danger, and that you are able to reassure that person that yes, you are able to give them a proper interview. Okay, so the person is convinced and says, okay, I'll give you an interview. Okay, now what do you need to do before an interview is also very important. First and foremost, you should know the background of the person, which means that you need to know what the person has said in the past, what has been his or her stand on a variety of issues. Okay, have you noticed any consistency in the thought process of that person? Okay, have you noticed any inconsistencies in the thought process of that person? You need to dig up all the facts about that person, what he has said. And fortunately we have databases in television. Now of course on Google you get what a person has said. You just need to search for that person, and you will get all the interviews on YouTube and sound bites and everything. Of course, the unfortunate ones and unpalatable ones, they would have actually seen to it that it is removed also from the social media. So, but in any case, most of the things that channels carry, they are there. Okay, you have them. Okay, so you need to do a lot of background check. Okay, you need to know on an issue. If you are going and interviewing somebody, you need to know what that person's stand is likely to be. Okay, so if he's a more a left-wing politician, what they're you should be able to know that what they would be saying would be in terms of what did the common man get. They will look at possibility of increasing equity in society. If you're going to a right-wing politician, that they are looking at, let's say maybe in addition to public interest, they might also be looking at long-term public interest rests in the the way the companies are doing, and therefore they might be willing to defend the budget, if it is a budget, that is. So you sort of know that there are various shades of political ideological opinions, and that this person is likely to react in this fashion. Now, you armed with this information, okay, armed with this kind of background information, then you should be going and interviewing that person. Now, if a person has already stated quite a few things on a particular issue or an event, you need to think, what is the additional information that I'm going to seek from this person? If he is going to repeat the same information, that information has already been published, and there is nothing newsworthy. Okay, news means something new has to be told. And if you're going to interview a person and he gives you a sound bite, and if he gives you an opinion or a reaction which he has already given to 100 other people, okay, then your interview is either late or not newsworthy anymore. You need to get something additional, okay, for your channel, because your channel has to be different from the other channels. It has to say all the things that the other channels are saying. But in addition to that, you need to have more information, something that others don't know. All the journalists look for that. Okay, what is that exclusive piece of information that I have been able to get that the other channel has not got? Okay, so you also need to know, many a time journalists say, okay, I have got an interview with Amitabh Bachchan, I have got an interview with somebody else, I have an opportunity. So what they do is that they go and do full length interview, and all that is required by the channel is one piece of information on one particular question. They wanted a reaction of the people. You go to the politician, you go to the film star, you go to the celebrity and do a full-fledged interview. Why? News channels do not have that kind of time to go through all the information that you have got, searching for that one bit that they will require. You are making the job of the editor back home in the studios more difficult by getting too much information. You should be very clear. This is the piece of information that I am looking for. So don't beat around the bush. You ask questions that are specific, for which you get specific information from that person. Okay, so for doing that, you should understand, is this interview going to be part of a news story? So a news story we know is just about 2 minutes maximum. In this 2 minutes, this person might be able to get about 30 seconds. For 30 seconds, don't end up doing 30 minutes of interview. Okay, so you should have very good understanding before you do the interview itself, how much of this footage will be used. Supposing a person gives you a long sound bite, okay, you ask only one question, but that fellow goes on and on and on. You should be able to say, thank you sir very much, but can you madam please give me the same thing in 30 seconds. Can you make it short and give it to me in 30 seconds? Because that is a little too long. So you need to force them to give you that information, or even when you're asking a question, you should be able to say, can you quickly tell me, what you've said is very interesting. Can you quickly tell me that in 30 seconds? And many people who are looking for, in any case, they know that such a long piece of interview will not be carried, and they will be willing to give you that piece of information in a shorter bit of time. Okay, so never hesitate. Okay, then you should always know what is the most important question or questions that you need to ask and get information for, because there are a lot of other things that sometimes you need to humor a person, you need to get them talking, there's a warm-up time, and then very slowly, surely, when you have that person comfortable and he's talking to you, then you slip in your questions, important questions. So those important questions you should know very well, because the interviewee, the person who is giving you an interview, he might try his best to mislead, especially when he does not want to give you information. He might talk anything and everything under the clouds, but he will not give you the information. So you should be very clear about what kind of information do you require, why are you there. Okay, now, so you should also know, okay, very important, asking the right questions to the right person. The person should be in a position to answer you the question. Supposing you want to say, when are the party elections going to be, internal party presidential elections going to take place? Who will you go and ask? You go and ask a party worker? No. The party worker is not in a position to give you that answer. So when you go to the senior leader of the party, who has been on a working committee of a party, or on a parliamentary committee, or some high position, then you take them aside and ask them, it's all this is okay sir, when is your party holding the elections? Is it holding the elections or not? There are various ways of asking also. Sometimes you might say, sir, your party does not hold any elections at all. So that person might get rattled. Why are you saying this? Our party also, does go for elections. And we are going to hold elections. So you say, when? So you say, we are going to hold elections. Maybe it will slip out. So you need to really know Okay, what are the right questions to ask of a right person? Don't ask the right questions to the wrong person and you will not get any this thing. Now, some basic things are also very important when you schedule an interview. One is where is the interview scheduled? It's a very important question. Now, because this is something that you may not find in books, and therefore I'll tell you. Where the person, there are some, interviews which are shows. Okay, you have, for example, Karan Thapar's show, on the wire, very incisive. Okay, and there are also, times when the interviewer is so important. Interviewee is so important that he will say, come to my house, we'll do an interview, come. And this location actually is going to make a lot of difference, because the lion is now on his turf. Okay, so he is in a better position to determine the pace and tempo of the interview. He is in a better position to control. So you need to be very sure that you go to that place in advance, get accustomed to that new place that he has actually called you to. You go before the time, you set up everything, you are ready, and that person comes in. So you feel more at home. It's very important to set the pace for the interview, and therefore punctuality is very important. You need to be more than punctual. That you should be able to reach the place, set up everything with your camera persons, with your sound recorders. Everyone should be there before that person comes, at least half hour before. Okay, so where the interview is scheduled is very important. Supposing the person is coming to your studio, then it is very comfortable. You are the Raja. You know that person has come to you, and you can, ask him difficult questions. You feel more confident. And many a time you'll see journalists that are very confident when they are doing their own shows, because they are very important, frankly speaking. Okay, for example, they know that they are very important. Okay, so it is their show. But general interview that you actually take, where you are dependent on the person who's giving you the interview, then if you're going to their location, then you need to be accustomed to the place. You have to make yourself at home before you start the interview. Okay, you need to be conscious also. Okay, now when is it scheduled? Many of the interview journalists, sometimes they for various reasons, they may not have the punctuality that is required. You should always arrive early. You should always arrive early. You should be there on time. You should listen. It is like widescreen to widescreen in a theater. Before the person arrives, and you leave after the person goes. Okay, because even after the interview, you need to sit back, take a look at the interview, fast forward, rewind, see, did you get all the pieces that you were looking for? Many journalists don't do that. Sometimes they might have given you the information, but the words they have used are not conducive. They don't seem to be committing themselves to anything. And therefore, you should know what you have on hand. Good journalists always say, is the interview over? Sir, 1 minute, we will check, and just 5 minutes. And in the meantime, they'll call for some tea, coffee or something, and the guest is spending time. And they'll say, sir, one question, we just need a clarification. And they start the interview again and do that one question or two questions and get the information somehow that they are looking for. That is a sign of a good journalist. Okay, now you should also understand what is the kind of equipment, because you know where the interview is going to be held. I'm not talking about location. When you say location, it means which room, which place, outdoor, indoor. If it is indoor, does it have plug points? Do you have access to electricity for your camera, to your lights, everything? So you should make sure. Normally when you go single camera production, you do what we call the recce. And this is also, you should do a recce. Okay, there are plug points and everything, sound quality is good. All these things you need to make sure. And then sometimes the journalist also advises, sir, in this location it's not very good. Can we sit by the pool side and do an interview? Can we have, in a cozier place where there are more carpets, more curtains, so the sound will be good, and more wood, of course. So the timbre of the voice is better. So what you do is, you ensure that you have the equipment that you require. And let me tell you something. I have made this mistake myself, and therefore it is nice to confess. We were doing a program on heart surgery, and I wanted some opinion of a doctor, a surgeon. And that place was, let's say, 20 kilometers away from the city. And I asked my team members, when you are taking a crew, there is one of the persons who actually makes sure that, the equipment that is required is, taken. And one of the most important thing was battery or the power adapter. Now, we went to the place where everything is very sensitive. It's a surgery room. You cannot push your, lights and, this kind of high powered, equipment there. And you are not even allowed to take this kind of heavy equipment with monitor and things like that into the surgery room, because these are very sanitized conditions. And I wanted the interview of the person, of soundbite of the person right there. So we were all dressed up in that attire, you have this gown and everything, medical, all that. We went inside and we said, okay, get the camera. And then we realized that the person who had to pack the equipment had not packed the batteries, and therefore we had to cancel the schedule. Fortunately, nowadays, interviews can take place even on mobiles. That's wonderful. But even on the mobile, please take a charger along with you. Okay, please see that you have 2 or 3 mobiles, and at least one of the mobiles or 2 of the mobiles have a full charge. Okay, you need to know, because video takes away a lot of charge also. So you need to be sufficiently that the battery is full. Okay, and there is space in your mobile also. Now, the equipment is done. So you also determine that whether you're interviewing for a show, or is it as a person's interview, or is it a soundbite that you want for a news story. All these occasions, where you need to go and meet a person, ask questions and get the answers. Now, pre-chat is very important, which means that you need to, go around. Let's say if it is a location that the interviewee has chosen, you have not chosen. You need to go around, get accustomed to that person also. You need to have a small chat. Go around the house, if it is at his house. See, appreciate some of the things, art pieces and everything. Get to know each other for some time. And then you should be able to have eye contact. Now, you should get used to the environment. And when you sit down also, please remember that you should always you should show that you are very keen on doing the interview. So your position also is very important. Your posture also is very important in an interview. You can't sit like this. Okay, you tell me the answer. No, you cannot do that. You need to slouch a little, go a little forward, and show that you are intent on taking the interview of that person. Okay, you should show interest, that keenness, that enthusiasm to get his views should be reflected even in your posture. So, eye contact, very important. You should look straight into the eye of the person. Otherwise, you will not be able to answer uncomfortable questions. You will not be able to ask uncomfortable questions. So, you should be able to lock your eyes and see straight into his eyes or her eyes, and then ask a question. So, eye contact is very important. So, these are the things that you need to really ensure. Now, there are some things that are very important. Okay, there are some questions, and these are common situations that I am going to talk about. Okay, now many people ask me, should we use a notebook? Should we give away the questions? Should we hand over the microphone? How do we dress up for the interview? Can we dress up very casually, not formally? What if he says it is off the record? What if he is going to answer questions yes or no only? And some people are very reticent. They don't speak too much, and Such people also need to be handled. How do we handle? Then how do you ensure natural progression in the interview? If it is a full length interview from one point to another, that point to the next. There should be a flow. How do you really ensure a natural progression? How do you build on responses and move ahead? Which means that if a person has answered a question and that is a little out of character, okay, then how do you now respond to that and change if you have a questions already in mind, but the responses are suddenly very different? So how are you going to tackle that? So you need to have some kind of a battle plan. Okay, how do you move ahead if the person is doing any of these? And what if the person is avoiding the leading question? You have gone there with what important questions you need to ask, but that person is deliberately avoiding that question and is giving any other question is being answered except that, and you are there only to ask that one question to get the right information. So these are things that there are many situations like this that come up, and we will go situation by situation. Okay, we will go situation by situation. We'll take about 10 situations and we will see. I'll give you tips about how to handle those situations. So shall we start? The first situation. Okay, let's say the interviewee asks for questions in advance. He says, okay, fine, I am willing to give you an interview, but give me the questions in advance. So first thing the journalist should do is to say, sir, I want to have a conversation with you. Okay, I do not want to mechanically ask one question and get an answer and come back. We are going to have a conversation. Okay, so I do not prepare any questions. It is not in my nature to prepare any questions. Okay, so that is one thing. Second thing, if you insist, I can give you issues on which we can talk, because that is all I know before I go into the interview. I have some questions about these issues. Issue number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm meeting you and I'll be meeting you with my crew to ask questions of you on these issues. So never give a questionnaire to any person you are trying to interview. It's a wrong thing to do, because once he gets the questions, he will prepare the answers and there is no spontaneity in the interview. See, when a person is asking a question, he fumbles, he makes a mistake. That person also, when he is replying, makes a mistake. All that is natural, and it brings spontaneity to the interview, which is very interesting. For that, human fallibility is very important even for the audience. If you are taking away that fallibility, that spontaneity of a natural response, the interview will look very dry. Okay, so give broad topics. If they insist, give broad topics. Never give a question. And better still, you should not follow a script. You should also have issues on which you are going to ask. Roughly, you should know what are the questions that you are going to ask. Don't prepare a questionnaire, but you should be so thorough about the subject and the topic that you know what questions you are going to ask, but you cannot actually measure the exact words in which you are going to ask those questions. If you are not confident, okay, last minute you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Some questions you need to take. Now the problem is, when you have a questionnaire, you don't prepare for supplementaries. You just go and say, okay, question number 1 you ask. Then that person is answering the question. You don't even pay attention. You go, what is the second question? You are ready to ask the second question. Then the second question is being answered. You don't pay attention. You ask the third question. Sometimes you're not even listening because you have a questionnaire and you say that, I have a questionnaire, I need to follow it. That will not work. So you need to be a good listener. Listen to what that person is saying. And because you have done your background work, you will be in a good position to ask a supplementary, to seek a clarification. But if you have a questionnaire, you say it is on paper and therefore I don't have to listen to this man. Whatever he says, let's keep recording. That's very, very poor and very unprofessional thing to do. Okay. Now, also, there's another possibility, especially if he's a person in authority and you are dependent on that person to give you an interview. And if you give them a questionnaire, that person is going to say, ask this question, don't ask this question. Ask the question like this. So he will start determining your questions also. What you will ask and what you will not ask. Even if he does not want to ask a question and you ask them spontaneously during the interview, that person will say, I don't have an answer, let's go to the next question. So that part where he says, let's go to the next question. That part where he says, I can't answer that question. That part where he refuses to answer the question also is giving information to the viewer. So the viewer knows why this fellow is trying to evade the question. That act of evasion also can be captured on camera. And therefore, any point, if you want a good interview, do not prepare a set question. Even if you are doing something in emergency, you've not done background information, you've not got all the facts, you're doing this interview in a hurry, still be a good listener and be ready with the supplementaries. Okay, on an issue, sometimes you may not know everything. So first you go and know what the you tell them that you're a novice, so you do not know anything about space, rocket science. And you're interviewing a rocket scientist. Be humble and say, you do not know. Get as much information as possible about, what work he has done. And then start the interview and ask your questions. Okay? So you've not done backgrounding, get it straight from the horse's mouth. You can do a lot of things, but remember one thing. People want to know the views of that person. It also tells you that your questions should not be longer than the answers that they give. Sometimes the people continuously ask a long question. It's such a loaded question that the person ends up saying, then gets tired of, okay, this fellow is going to finish the question now or the other. He'll wait and say, yeah, that is true. You've asked a long question and the person is just saying, yeah, it's true. Could be true. What does that mean? Okay, so this, you need to always be very sure about this. Do not have a pre-recorded view of the interview that is going to be. The second situation, the interview always sometimes gives you like this, in these occasions, gives very brief answers, very monosyllabic, yes, no, whatever. Remember, that person is not accustomed to you and is perhaps giving, despite all the warm-up that you do, in front of the camera suddenly he is a little scared. So he starts resorting to yes and no's. So when he is saying yes, you keep nodding yes. That's very interesting, sir. Can you continue? That's interesting. Can you elaborate? Okay. So, or you say, could you explain? So when you are alert to that person and when they are giving you monosyllabic answers in yes and no, then very brief answers, encourage them, nod in agreement, encourage them to talk more. Okay? When the person is giving you answers that are very, very brief. The third situation, interviewer is unwilling to answer or part with information. You have gone there to get some information. The person is not giving you that information at all. So, you should keep the camera rolling and expose the fact that he is trying to evade the question. The audience is watching. The audience can see that this person is trying to evade the question. Then you say it is in their interest that they have agreed to do the interview, that it is in their interest because people have a certain perception about what has happened, and it's important that he gets his perception across to people. Explain to them. Then finally, if they still evade and say, sometimes it also happens that the person may not have been prepared to give you an interview, and he needs certain facts and figures before he can answer your question. So what you should do is, and this is a major important thing, it is better that he gives you facts from the horse's mouth. You get those facts, and therefore let him check the facts and then give you a reply. At least you have an authentic reply that has come, authentic information that has come. You give an opportunity for that person. If he does not remember some facts and figures, he says, I would like to check, and I'll give you that. Do that, allow them. But don't allow them to go away from the interview side. They'll be sitting there, whatever book, paper, whatever document they want to check. Let them check and give you the correct facts. Your interview also is going to be much better, which will have the right information. Now, sometimes the interviewer will stray out of focus. There is some focus in the interview, he goes out of focus. So, how do your job is to bring him back into the interview, into the main point and the focus of the interview. How do you say? Sir, that's a very interesting thing that you have said. But, let's go back to the point that we were discussing. You were saying something very interesting. Can we go back to that point? Then the person said, okay, I've strayed out of focus. Then he will come back. He'll give you a nice laughter and then he'll come back to the... So you should always show interest in what he is saying. At the same time, don't lose track of why you are there. Okay? Now, next situation. Interviewer insists on answering with a prepared script in hand. This is another thing that you will encounter. The person says, whatever you ask, I will not give you a direct reply. I look at the paper and he keeps giving answers by looking at the paper. This is a tendency of some people. They have a prepared list of things that they want to say. Some of the spokespersons are notorious for this. No matter what question you ask, they will give what they want to tell you. So, and they would have a prepared speech or prepared something. Let's say the live interview. The camera is on. And the person insists on reading from the prepared script. What do? You quietly say, sir, I think this is very interesting. Can I please have this paper and I'll definitely use this when I'm going back to the studios, and take that paper away from their hands. And this is something that you need to dare to do, and very gently, because you can actually displease that person. You take away that paper gently, fold it and put it in your pocket and ask the next question. Believe me, this is something that I've done, and this has been recommended in books also. It's not that I'm saying something that is outlandish. It has worked. Because people tend to do this, and that kind of interview is no interview on television. Somebody can get away by doing that in a print media interview. They can even do that away in a radio interview also. Because that radio interview, you can't see the paper. But on television, somebody reads out from the paper to the answer that you are giving. The audience gets really ticked off. And do not allow. Remember what I said. You are there on behalf of the audience. The audience gets ticked off. Before that, you should get ticked off. And do something about it. So quietly say, sir, that's very interesting. You seem to have a lot of points. Let me make use of it if you don't mind. And take away that paper. Now, sometimes the interviewer also uses a lot of jargon. Words that are very difficult. You understand that word because you have done background research. You know what he is talking about. You are talking to a surgeon. He is talking about placebos. He is talking about many other things, medical jargon. You already know that because you have done a lot of backgrounding. Supposing you already know what does that ultrasound can reveal the inner chambers of the heart, whether they are pumping very well or not. All this knowledge you know, but do not assume that the audience knows. And because the interviewee knows that you also know, there is a tendency to use jargon, difficult words for which meanings of which the audience does not understand. So remember that if he or she, the personality, is using words that your audience is not likely to understand, you say, sir, can you please explain that? It's always better to get them to explain. Or if the person should not be asked that question, okay, you need to turn to the camera and say, when placebo, this is what he means. Explain that word and then, yes sir, let's go on with the interview. So when there are any difficult words that are being thrown at the audience, and if you think that the audience will not know, turn to the camera, look into the camera, explain that word and go back to the interview. Very important. Then always stop and cross check. Okay, this is very important. Now, interview does not answer questions directly and deviates purposely. It does not answer directly. It goes around, round and round. So you should constantly be saying, that's very interesting, sir. Let's come back to the question. Let's come back to the question and ask the question again. Let's say he evades again because he doesn't want to give you information. But first time you did not know that he is trying to evade the answer, the question. So you ask again and still he evades. So you ask again. The person evades the third time. You try to ask in a different way the same question. That person is very smart. He evades again. Then you know that this person does not want to give you that information, does not want to answer that question. What do? You say directly, look straight into the eye and say, sir, why are you trying to avoid the question? And look straight into their eyes. Okay? That will, set them off. Okay? So they will say that, they become very shaky when you directly look into their eyes and ask the question. Then they will say, no, I am not trying to avoid blah, 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 or he might end up giving you answer. All this action is getting recorded on the camera. This makes for interesting watching also for the audience. So don't think that, you're looking only for information. You're also capturing the emotions of the person because the camera is on. And emotions and the expressions of the people also communicate a great deal because they are non-verbal communication, you see. So it's very important. And that is the advantage of a television interview. That, when we say that, communication, 80% of our communication is non-verbal. So if you are able to, camera allows you to capture the non-verbal communication. So from an interview, television interview, you get much more than just information. Remember that. Okay. Now, some people, I still remember former Prime Minister of the country, Morarji Desai, and he is widely quoted also. Whenever a journalist is probably one of the most difficult persons to interview. That's what the journalists have said. So whenever you ask him a question, instead of replying, he will ask you that question and say, okay, before I answer, you tell me what you would have done. Now, the journalist doesn't know what to do when instead of answering the question, the person is asking him the answer to the question. So, something very easy to do, of course, and many journalists have done that later on also. They have perfected that art and they have said, they remind the person, he may be the Prime Minister, but they remind, sir, people are interested in knowing what you think. People are not interested in knowing what I have to say about this question. I do not have the authority. I do not have any opinion on this. As a journalist, I am not supposed to have an opinion on this. I am here because people want to listen to your opinion. And you should answer that question. I cannot answer that question. So you need to excuse yourself from those kind of situations. Sometimes, difficult people that you encounter when you are doing an interview, no matter how much you try, the interview turns into an argument. Many a time, therefore, a good trained journalist, a seasoned journalist, under all provocation, keeps his or her cool. They will not get agitated. Your job is to cause that person discomfort. You should not be seen that you are being put into discomfort. Okay? So, under gravest provocation, you should not get angry. You should not, behave in a manner that is unbecoming. Okay? So please be very conscious of this. And if the person continues to be rough, gross, aggressive, let the camera keep rolling. Let the people see what kind of person this person is. That aggression also is going to make for very good television. If something like that happens with the biggest person in the land, you consider yourself very lucky because along with that person, your interview is going to be one of the most famous interviews that will be played on YouTube again and again and again. So I don't want to say which of those interviews have become so famous. People go back again and again, they become reference points, and how the camera continued to roll captured the discomfort on the faces of these, big personalities and, politicians, and they have been put to trouble. Okay, sometimes the person, the interviewer, the minister or the MLA, MP, somebody you are going to interview, might insist that their press officer was also with them. Now, what do? You have to get the information, you have to get the person talking. At the same time, that person is saying, I want my press officer to be around. So, you should say, sir, definitely, the press officer can be called, whatever information, whatever you want to talk to him about, it's fine. But on the camera, he is not going to be there. He is not going to reply. Okay? And he should not interrupt the interview. When I'm asking a question, he should not come in and butt in and, interrupt the interview. So you should insist on that. Okay? Now, sometimes, even when you say no, first you say no to the press officer. When he insists on having the press officer before answering the question, then you be a little more sure, and he says, why does this person want the press officer to be there? The minister many a time may not have facts and figures on their hands, and therefore you say, sir, you can consult the press officer only for accuracy of figures or accuracy of facts. On other things, the press officer should not come on air, and that is very, very poor, and it will reflect very poorly on your image. Then, sometimes what happens is when you are interviewing people, especially for sound bites and a television story that you're doing, news story that you're doing, let's say the election is going on and you have a lot of people, they are moving in groups, and you want a sound bite of the the candidate, you go and ask, and how is the party really doing and things like that. So the tendency is that he will be with one or two of his friends, and not only will this person start answering, his friends and associates also will start answering the question. You are not interested in what his associates have to say, important as they may be, but you are interviewing only this person. So what do? You say, sir, what you are saying is very interesting, sir. Can we have a separate interview with you? Okay, so you draw your main character, protagonist, away from that scene, interview him in a separate corner where there is no interference from these people. And if those people have something important to say, do a separate interview so that they are also happy. Okay, and you also get maybe some tidbits of information. So always offer another time, for and place for interviewing the others. Okay, so you also need to ensure, that in the end, I would say that don't have this yes and no questions. Ensure that there is a natural progression, and therefore you don't prepare questionnaire in advance, nor do you give that questionnaire in advance. You need to build on responses that you're getting and move ahead. You should ensure that flow, and always avoid leading questions. Okay, leading questions mean there is already an answer in that question. Don't ask. Open-ended questions, sharp questions, straight questions will get you the real answers. With that, we come to the end of the interviewing bit. Okay, so thank you very much for staying with me, and hope you have been able to clarify quite a few things that you perhaps did not know about interviewing. These are some practical tips. Make use of them, and happy interviewing. Thank you very much.